to the Research Spotlight. My name is Tisha, and on this platform, we celebrate researchers, and they also share with us some of the cool stuff they are doing. Today, I have the amazing pleasure of speaking to a very wonderful gentleman who is so passionate about the climate. And so, if you've got questions about the climate and the environment, just drop them in the comment section, right? So, my guest for today is soon to be Dr. Frederick Otu-Larbi. He is a PhD researcher at the Lancaster University in the United Kingdom. Welcome, Mr. Otu-Larbi.
Thank you very much, Tisha, and pleased to be here.
Yeah, how are you feeling today?
I'm very well, thank you. How about you?
I'm fine, thank you. So, how is the weather in the UK?
It's been sunny today.
Wow.
We've been enjoying a bit of sunshine, which is not too usual for the UK. We're used to a lot more rain than sunshine. So.
Well, that's good to know. So, talking about the weather, have you always wanted to be a climate research scientist, or is something that just came?
Not necessarily. So, I actually started as a physics student back in University in 2007.
Mm-hmm.
And then after a year in physics, the department was introducing a new course in atmospheric sciences, so meteorology and climate science. And I have had interest, especially in anything to do with astronomy, weather, and so. So I opted to go into the meteorology and climate science course. And then a few of us were selected to start that course. So we were the pioneer students for meteorology and climate science, which set me off on a career or a path towards being a climate scientist and a weather man.
Great. So the journey started on the campus of University. But when you were in the primary school or JSS, what was your dream? What did you want to be?
Do I actually remember? I think I wanted to be go into business. So I can tell you an interesting story.
Mm-hmm.
When I wanted to actually go to University, to secondary school, I'd wanted to do business, but my grandfather convinced me to do science with the excuse that I could always do business later on. If I get a science degree and want to branch into, say, an MBA or any business related courses, then I could go and do that. It's exceedingly hard to do the opposite.
Yeah.
As to do a business course in secondary school, maybe do a first degree in business, and then switch to science or engineering. That's almost impossible. Or very difficult. You need to go back and do a lot of science. But if you actually do science in the secondary school for first degree and you want to switch to, say, an MBA or a business related course, it's really very easy. So that's how my grandfather actually managed to move me from a business related person to science. God bless his soul.
Yeah. So do you regret listening to your grandfather?
No, not at all. Not at all. I mean, with hindsight, he was right. He had there's the proverb that says what an old man sees lying down.
Yeah.
A child cannot see even if he's on top of the tallest
tree.
It's a Iroko tree. So with hindsight, he was
right. Yeah.
He was right. Yeah.
Okay. So you moved from physics to climate science, right? And what inspired you to do that? Because some of your classmates continue to do the physics, but you moved. So where did you take that?
Yeah, because So I've always been interested in things to do with astronomy, in things to do with what's happening in the sky above us, and so on. So when that opportunity came, I was interested. I was happy to have a go at it. And again, because it was new, the job prospects
Mm-hmm.
are usually higher
Yeah.
after you've done something that is novel or new in Ghana. So that was an additional motivation. And then finally, I thought it was an opportunity to study something that could be useful, especially to farmers,
Yeah.
as weather is very important in the kind of rain-fed agriculture that we have in Ghana.
Great. So you are a PhD student, and so what problem is your research work solving? I mean,
So
I know that climate science is quite broad. So maybe if you would be specific, so that we know exactly what problem you are solving.
yeah, so PhDs basically we have a huge title, but in the end you actually study something very, very small.
Mm.
What I'm currently studying is the impact of stress, that is drought and pollution on plants. So
Mm-hmm.
how drought affect plants in terms of their productivity and how they grow, and then also how that affects pollution affects plants, how they grow, their productivity, and then in exchange, how the plants also affect the climate. So plants emit something called biogenic volatile organic compounds, BVOCs, into the atmosphere, which has impacts on the climate. So weather, climate, so on. So I'm looking at that interaction. How is the atmosphere affecting the plants? How is the plant affecting the atmosphere?
Wow, interesting. So, what are some of the challenges that you face with this work you are doing?
In terms of challenges, I would say some of it will be common to most people. Sometimes you do an experiment that doesn't go as you expected. So mostly I do modeling. So
Hmm.
I write codes,
Programs?
and then I use observations to try and understand what's happening in reality, and then I project for the future. So sometimes you set up an experiment, you thought about what goes into that experiment, but you actually do the experiment and it doesn't come out as you expected. The output isn't what you expected. So you need to go back, look at what went wrong, and then redo your experiment. Um, that's some of the challenges that I believe not just me, but every PhD student encounters.
Yeah. So, I mean, when you are doing the modeling stuff, do you have in mind a particular location? For example, you are doing something that would benefit farmers. Do you consider Ghana or Africa or the United Kingdom where you are having your PhD?
So for my work, I've actually been using data sets from different places. I haven't actually worked on anything in Ghana specifically, but the good thing with models and modeling is that once you've tested them, you've tried them, and so on elsewhere, you can then take the experience from what you've done
Mm-hmm.
to other locations. The knowledge you acquire by trying out your model in, say, the UK. Let's say I want to understand how drought affects corn yields. Now, that knowledge you get
Mm-hmm.
can then be transported to Ghana. Now, there may be differences in terms of the
Yeah,
climate
because
and so on,
mm-hmm.
but the fundamentals would be the same. So you can then apply that knowledge and that understanding to what happens in Ghana.
Wow, that's interesting. So, how is I mean a typical day like for a researcher? You wake up in the morning and then
There's no routine per se. As in, technically you are doing a 9 to 5 job as a PhD student. Or a researcher. You're doing a 9 to 5 job. So you go in the morning, and technically you're supposed to close by evening. But sometimes you leave very late. Sometimes you leave early. There are days where you have workshops, conferences to attend. These days, they are mostly online. So there are days where I have to attend maybe 2 or 3 online conferences or meetings and so on. So although it's a 9 to 5 job, technically speaking, you don't have a routine. As
yeah.
in, I go to the office every day. Sometimes you go to the office, sometimes you don't go to the office, and so on. It changes by the day. Even when you are in the office, sometimes you're working on a particular piece of work. Sometimes you're writing up for publication. Sometimes you're actually doing modeling work, or you're going to the lab. Those sort of. So the routine comes with the times.
Okay. I can see, or I can imagine that sometimes it gets very stressful. So how do you manage the stress that comes with pursuing a PhD?
Yes, there's a lot of stress, especially when things don't go as expected.
Yeah.
Now, on a personal level, I don't take things too seriously. As in, when something doesn't work, I leave it to one side and do something else. So if an experiment isn't working, I'd leave it to one side and then maybe do some writing or do some reading, and then come back to that experiment maybe after a week. And sometimes when you do that, you realize actually it was a very simple issue. But
Yeah.
then if you kept looking at it, you it's like you're digging. You keep digging into the problem, and it's a very simple solution and you miss it. So when things don't work, I tend to leave them to the side for a while, go and do something else. There's always something you can do. There's reading to do, there's writing to do, there's conference applications, there's papers to write. And then after a while, I come back to the problem with fresh eyes, fresh mind, and sometimes the solution looks quite
Yeah.
simple.
Okay. That's great to know. So we all know that last year was a very difficult year for, I mean, most of us because of the
Mm.
COVID, right? But you were able to publish about 5 articles, right? So
Yeah,
yeah, can you tell us a bit about that? Because I mean, I know last year brought a whole lot of mental challenges, difficulties, but you were able to do all these things. So tell us a bit about that and how
yeah.
you.
So actually, although the papers themselves were published last year, the work for those papers started before then. So some of them would have started maybe in 2019 or 2018. And as I said, I usually have different streams of work ongoing. I should also say some of those papers are co-authored. So there's a lead author, and I am providing either some modeling data or some analysis on that paper. So, um, but yeah, I usually have different streams of work ongoing. And so what happened was that last year, those streams of work kind of came together and got published in a closely how do we call it, one after the other. So it was kind of a good year, scientifically speaking. But that's because I had been doing some of the work prior to that. But yeah, so paper submissions, and because I was home, working from home, I had a lot of time to do my writing, to refine the ideas, get it around, get people to look at it, co-authors and so on, and then get them to the publishers. So yeah. it's been building up a bit, but then the 1 year at home actually offered the time to kind of write them out, put them together, and get them
So in a
published.
way, the COVID was a blessing to you, right?
Yeah, making the most, again, going back to, as I said, if don't overstress yourself too much, thinking, oh, there's COVID, all my plans have gone out of the way, I don't know what to do. Instead of despairing, you should ask, what can I do to fill in that time?
Yeah.
And in my case, it was working on my papers and getting them published.
Well, we celebrate you for this, and we are very proud of you for this achievement. Well done, and keep up
Thanks.
with your good work.
Thanks.
Yeah, so there are some younger people who might be watching you, and they may also be thinking of, oh, I also want to, get a career as a researcher or do something about the climate. What would you tell such people? What should they know before they even think of starting or following your footsteps?
Okay. Firstly, that research is passion driven. To actually do research and succeed, you need to be passionate about it.
Mm.
Because, as I said, you're trying to solve maybe a small problem, which may have bigger implications once you're able to deal with it. But then it will take a lot of time. It will take a bit of times when things fail and so on. And what drives you really is your passion. It's not a high-paying job, as you would know. If you compare to people who go into industry and so on, it's much more lucrative to be in industry than to be in research. But then to come up with something that would be useful to people in the long term is really something that you become very proud of. So you need to be passionate, firstly. And then you need to select something that you like, something that you want to do, something that you love to do. It shouldn't just be that I want to do a PhD or I want to be a researcher. So this
So
is the
that
only
I'll become
opportunity.
a doctor.
Yeah, this is the only thing available, and therefore I'm going to do it.
Mm-hmm.
That's not really. You need to like what you want to do, be passionate about it.
Okay,
That
so
way,
mhm.
you become self-motivated, and you get a drive to go forward.
So apart from being passionate about it, do you also have to be super brilliant? Because sometimes you can be passionate about something, but you know, you may not have.
You don't need to be super brilliant to do a PhD. Certainly not in my case. I'm not the most brilliant person, as you know. But the
I know
point
you're
is,
brilliant.
the point is that I would say it takes a lot more of tenacity, okay, than brilliance. There are a lot of brilliant people who may start a PhD and not finish. And then there is the average Fred who understands that I want to do this, I want to finish it, and therefore stays the course and finishes it. So yes, you need the intellect. You need to be able to understand what you're doing, what the problems are, what the skills you need, and so on and so forth. And that is usually sorted out by the time you actually get a position, because PhDs usually go through an interview process and so on. And therefore, your supervisors and the school try to sift out and get people who have certain basic skills to do the work. Now, what's really needed once you've gotten in is the tenacity, that willpower to be able to finish it, to say, I've started the race and I'm going to finish.
Yeah.
It's an important skill to have, or mentality to have.
Yeah, well, that's good to know. So let me take you a bit back again. To start a PhD, do you need to have published some papers in your master's?
Not really. Not really. Depend, because so actually for a place like the United States, most people go into a PhD from their first degree.
Yeah.
So they have the master's and PhD combined. So you after your first degree, you just get into a PhD, and it takes you about 4 or 5 years to finish. Now in the UK, in Ghana, and elsewhere, you do a first degree, and then you do a master's degree, and then you get into a PhD. But you don't really need, if you publish, as I said, it's usually competitive getting into a PhD program, especially if it is sponsored. If you're going to get a scholarship, it's usually competitive. So if you have published a paper or two from your master's degree or from previous work, it gives your supervisors or whoever is employing you as a PhD student that confidence that this person already has some skills. At least they can write, they can analyze results, and so on. So that puts you kind of above the competition. So it's good. It's a good thing to have, but not necessarily a requirement.
Okay, so before you start, do you have to apply to the school, and then the school will help you get a supervisor, or you have to look for a supervisor, someone who is interested in, someone who is doing what you are interested in doing? Talk to the person, settle there before the person takes you to his or her school.
So it's different people have different routes to doing a PhD. For some people, they will do, say, a master's degree, and then during their master's, maybe they will do a thesis or research with a supervisor, and then the person would say, "Well, I actually like what you've done, and I'm getting funding from this source, so I want you to continue for another 3-4 years to do a PhD." That option is available to some people. Now, to other people, you may not get that. So you go out and then you see an advert. Usually these are advertised like jobs. So there's an opening here for a PhD candidate. These are the requirements. This is the field. If it's your field and you feel you're qualified, you apply, and then you get, so in that case, it will come with a supervisor. So maybe a supervisor has a project, advertises it on a university website, or there are a couple of websites that tend to advertise PhD positions, and then you can apply and get in. The other option is that you, as a student, can write your own proposal and then go to a university. Most universities in the UK, in the US, elsewhere, in Ghana, you can actually go to a department and say, "I have this idea. This is what I want to research. Can you supervise me?" And maybe reach out to people through email and so on. And if some people will take it up, depending on how good the idea is and so on. And if it falls within their own area of expertise, they will take it up, and then they would supervise you to do the work. So the routes are different for different people. All going towards the same end goal.
Okay, thank you. I think this is a very it's a very good information for those in the undergraduates or masters who want to go in this path. So before we continue, let's read some of the comments that we have here. We have Mary saying, "Wow." We have Collins Asuman saying, "Interesting." We have Yoram Danu saying, "Otu-Larbi to the world. Go you happy friend." And she also goes on to say, "The host looks so familiar, like a lady I knew by name, Letitia from Ken University." Yeah, she is the one. Yeah. And I totally agree with Fred. It doesn't take brilliance to do a PhD. It definitely needs tenacity and perseverance. Yeah. Thank you for the comments and keep them coming. Okay, so do you have a mentor or someone that you look up to?
Yes, I have several people that I look up to in the field, but then that would depend on precisely what I'm doing, what I'm researching, and so on. So there are people I look up to in terms of their research ethics and things like that. Yeah.
Okay, and are you also a mentor, or are there, like, if there are some people who would want you to mentor them, are you available for that? And if
Yeah.
yes, how can they
So
contact?
over the last 3 or 4 years, I have been a mentor to at least 9 people. I tend to mentor at least 3 people each year for the university,
That's
and
great.
a few more informally. So yes, I tend to mentor people, and the way I mentor them, what I tell them is exactly the way I am discussing things with you,
Mm-hmm.
giving them advice about how to survive um, in a research position, either as a master's student, how not to lose your cool or lose your head because things are not going well. One thing I always tell people is that nobody has ever solved a problem by panicking.
Mm-hmm.
No,
Yeah.
nobody has ever solved a problem by panicking. You always need to stay calm. It may just need keeping the problem to one side for a moment, coming back to it. So yes, I am available to mentor people if people need me to.
Well, that's great. Thank you. Thank you for that. Now, we know that you're in the UK, but you're Ghanaian, right? So let's go to into the future. We don't know yet, but do you have plans of going back to support the research work in Ghana with your ideas and, I mean, the knowledge you've acquired?
Definitely, at some point, I will be going back to Ghana sooner rather than later. Um, it's it's easier to do research outside of Ghana. It's less frustrating. The facilities are better, and so on and so forth. But we need to go back at some point, and we need to drive the needed innovation, the needed change that will eventually lead our country forwards. If we all look at our personal goals,
Mm-hmm.
if you think about it, if the at any point in history one nation or the other was developed than others, if
Yeah.
everybody left their countries to go to that single country, what would happen? People had to stay behind and
Yeah.
fix their own countries, which
Mm-hmm.
is what has caused several underdeveloped nations to now also rise. Um,
Yeah.
and and yeah, we all need to put our chests to the wheels. So yes, I'll be going back to Ghana at some point.
Great. So, how do you see the future of research work in Ghana? Is there hope?
Uh, yes, there is hope. So long as there's life, we should have hope. Um, I wish there was better funding for research. So throughout my almost 4 years here, my fee, stipend, everything else is paid. I've got facilities. As you can see in my office, there's so many desktops, there's so many
Yeah.
computers. I've got access to high performance computing and so on in the university and externally and so on. So the facilities are available. Now, I wish we had the same in Ghana. It's not entirely the case at the moment, but we can campaign for it. We can keep talking about it. We can keep making efforts towards it, and I'm sure we'll get there.
Wow. Thank you so much, Mr. Otu-Larbi, for taking us through your journey and for the wonderful advice that you've given. Now, our time is almost up. So what will be your final words to our viewers, especially the younger ones who are looking up to you?
As I said, what you really need if you want to get into research is your passion and your drive. And then say, this is what I want to study. This is the input I want to make to society. This is the change I want to bring in society, and then go for it. Being a researcher wouldn't make you rich, but if you're able to solve a problem, now imagine the people who have solved the COVID, who have brought the COVID vaccine.
Yeah.
They are not the richest people, but I'm sure they go to bed each day. Very, very happy people that they've solved a crisis, a monumental crisis. That's the kind of motivation you need.
Wow, that's great. Thank you so much. And continue with the good work. I learned a lot on your page on Facebook. I think last year you posted a lot about the climate, and I personally picked up some stuffs that I'm doing to make sure that our environment is safe. So continue.
Okay.
Yeah, and
maybe I should get back to that then. Thanks for that feedback.
Yes, I learned a lot on your page last year. This year, I don't think you are doing it this year, but last year I learned a lot. Yeah, thank you so much for coming. And viewers, thank you so much for staying tuned to the end of the program. And see you in our next episode. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.